Alright, it's recording. Don't mess this up for me. What's up, guys? We're back on weekend 2 of the airboat rebuild. I found somebody that decided to come from Texas. You know, pick up a camera and he's got to crawl out of his hole. But off camera, what I've done already this morning is I went ahead and welded the whole outside of the box up. You saw me run my little 1-inch welds. It's all the same thing, but longer. So now we've got to figure out how we're going to mount our seats on it. And we cut one piece, coped it out to fit. That's what we're working on now. So we got to do 3 more of these. I'll show you how I did it and a kind of a sketchy tip on on how you can do it at home with a hole saw. I'm doing it with a mill and an end mill because it's a whole lot quicker and I'm running low on time today. So that's what we're working on, and hopefully we'll have the box completed today and we can start working on the instrument panel. So if you're at home and don't have a tubing notcher, an easy way to do it is to center it up. You know, on the center of the hole saw, you have a drill bit. What I do is I take the tubing, butt it up against the drill bit, and that's where I set my stop at for this. That way it's the same every time. And then you can cut your drill press on and slowly work through this. This is not the ideal way of doing it, but it works, and it works well if you take your time and do it. This isn't the way I'm doing it, but if you're at home and have a drill press or a hand drill or whatever, that's an easy way of doing it. So this is how I'm going to do it. I've got an inch and a half tubing. I've got an 1.5 inch roughing mill in there. So all I'm doing is bumping it, and I'm just eyeballing this. It's not rocket science. All I'm doing is running that end mill into it until I feel like I'm at where I need to be. All I'm doing. Right about there. Alright guys, so what we're working on now is we've got the braces that we coped out for the seats down here. We got one seat mounted in typical Hunter Armour fashion. I wasn't prepared and my camera battery died, so we kind of did a few things off film. So what we did is we put our braces in here for the seat. We got one seat mounted. We got the console where it's roughly gonna go. And now what Zach is working on is measuring out for the foot portion of this, where we're going to rest our feet at, where the gas pedal will be, yada yada yada. And we're trying to keep it as tight as we can against the seat box.
Oh, we moved it. How far out did you move it? What is it to the outside of it?
About 5 5/8.
5.5 it is. No, to the outside, there's a pipe.
To the outside of the pipe?
The outside of the pipe.
7 7/8.
8 inches. So close in motion. Hope this is some scrap wood.
Should be. Close enough.
it'll start to kink. Well,
Yeah.
we need 2 tape measures.
Yeah. I'm not too upset with that. All right, guys. So after some careful consideration and delicate bending, we this is what we've come up with. The sheet I have is 20 inches wide. This is the last sheet off the fan boat, and it's roughly 20 inches wide. So we went. The sheet will butt up to here. We'll have more pieces coming out, obviously, to support it. And I wanted to keep it as tight against the box as I could, but it just didn't work out that way. Because none of the benders I have will bend tight enough to keep it here and still be able to keep our feet on it. And there's no point just resting one foot on the footrest, right? So it's perfectly on the outside, or about flush with the outside of this tubing, maybe a little bit wider. So we'll have braces here, braces coming off the back, and then the sheet, and of course we'll have gussets underneath it once we mount it. But I'm really liking the way this is starting to shape up. All right, so we've done a little more work off camera. A lot of this has just been kind of copy and pasted from the first episode of this, just cutting and laying out everything I showed y'all how to do on the first one. I'm trying to keep these videos a little bit shorter than 40 minutes. So what we did was we've got our runners. This is the foot post. We've got the whole thing laid up. We got all the supports in that we needed. I welded them in, and then we took our sheet, traced out what we needed. We're getting ready to cut it. Again, the same way. We're gonna use a skill saw or a jigsaw, something like that. And we'll get the sheet tacked on, and then finally get the box up there and see how everything's gonna work out. It's shaping up really awesome, and I can't wait to get it on the boat and see. What you think about it, Zach? You'll be spending more time on it than I am.
It's been another day living the dream.
All right, guys. So this is as far as we made it today. We got the pedestal for the feet down. We got a seat mounted. I'm still waiting on another seat shell. But it's turning out really well. Tomorrow we're gonna cut off the old stand here where all the old rigging was, and find a way, or find where that needs to be mounted, and get it buttoned up. It's turning out pretty slick. I still got a few more welds to make on it. We've just got it kind of far enough tonight. And hopefully tomorrow I can start on my instrument panel. I'm pretty excited about it. And yeah, that's where we're at. I still got to pull my stick out, figure out where it's going to go now. It's going to come out a lot farther than I thought it would, but that's just part of the game. So yeah, it's shaping up to be a pretty slick little build. I'm happy with it, very happy with it. Also got to cut the hole for the hatch. Got to measure that out tomorrow too. So we'll catch you guys in the morning. It's getting pretty late here now, so we'll see you then. All right, guys. So we're back on day 4 of getting this airboat back together. I got here about 30 minutes ago, so I pulled the box back off the boat. I went ahead and welded the whole bottom side. There was a few places I had to MIG weld just for ease, so I didn't have to stand here all day trying to TIG weld them. I knew I said I was going to TIG weld everything, but it is what it is. I just kind of got to get it done at this point. I'm trying my best to show you how to do it at home. I know everybody doesn't have a aluminum push-pull gun at home, but I'm kind of at the point where I just need to get this part done. It's taking a little longer than I thought it would. But all I have left for the box, aside from cutting the hatch out, is I got to clean up these radiuses a little bit with the grinder. On both sides, my fit up was a little iffy, but it's nothing that won't clean up just from the saw. And then I'm going to go ahead, TIG weld my radiuses out, clean up any kind of sharp edges I find, and we'll start chopping up on the old rigging and getting this dude mounted up there. And hopefully I can get to my instrument panel today. That's kind of the thing I'm most excited about because I haven't done anything like that yet. I'm gonna get to work and just let the camera roll. While the seat stand is cooling off enough to handle, I just put a whole bunch of weld on it. I'm gonna set up on a time lapse so I can start stripping this old rigging out. I'm gonna cut as much of it as I can out, pull the stick off so I can start figuring out where it needs to go with the new box, getting all the old stuff I cut off flat so the new box will sit flat, and then I can start working on mounting it. So yeah, there's a lot of old brackets and stuff that are on here that just don't need to be here anymore. For some reason, the guy who built this boat decided it needed 4 battery trays. It doesn't need 4 battery trays, so they got to go. And I can start working on modifying where the Jenny's gonna sit and all that. So that's the plan. As a lot of this is getting cut out, it's gonna lighten the boat up a good bit. And fortunately, the new box I built is about the same weight as that double seat box, with as much as I've cut off of it and all that, believe it or not. With the 2 seats, the cushions, the console and all that, it's gonna be about the same weight. So I'm maybe a little more. I was worried it's gonna be way too heavy, and I was doing all this for nothing because unfortunately this boat is only direct drive for now. I'm gonna cover up that fuel tank because it shouldn't have any gas in it, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. And that's another thing, guys, when you take your boats to a fabricator to have anything done, please drain the gas out of it and let it have time to get all the fumes out of the tank. I'd hate for some old boy to burn his shop down because, you know, you got 50 gallons of gas sitting back there. And that's on the welder too, don't get me wrong, I understand, you know, that's something we're supposed to check, but do the right thing. All right, so after don't know, last hour or so. We've got the seat stand finally mounted. It's not going anywhere, and it is very solid. I'm indecisive whether I'm gonna come off with gussets. Mike and I both stood on here, so that's, I don't know, 300 plus pounds standing on top of this, and it flex very, very little. Right now, I'm worried about the console. I really want to get started on that. Don't ask me why, just excited about it. I got the steering stick back on there. I still have to come up with a bracket to hold the cable and be able to steer, but it's all super comfortable. I'm gonna come back with rubber spacers put in here to kind of mitigate sphincter rattling when running, because the last seat was pretty rough. But it's finally on there, and I'm super happy with it. There's plenty of room to walk around it. There's plenty of room, standing room up here. I've still got to mount the pedal, mount the bracket for the throttle cable, and that's really about it. And cut the hatch out. I had to cut a hole in it so I could reach my arm in there, and so we can bolt it down. But it's just about done, minus another seat, and I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do with the seats. Ready to start on my instrument panel, console, whatever you want to call it. Now, I go ahead and get a disclaimer out of the way. I did not make this console. I purchased it pre-built, pre-bent, pre-welded, everything you see here. I bought for 150 bucks minus the gauges and all that. I bought for 150 bucks off of Diamondback Airboat's website. That saves me from ordering a sheet of aluminum, bringing it in, cutting it, welding it, bending the edges and all that. I figured for 150 bucks it'd be worth my time, and I honestly probably couldn't make it that cheap. So yeah, I'm pretty impressed with it. It came in really good condition. It's good thick aluminum. So I'm pretty excited about it. For 150 bucks, I don't think I could have beat it. So I've got my gauges. I've been taking measurements of my gauges, figuring out what diameter I need to make the holes. I'm fixing to start laying it out. I'll probably put a time lapse up of that because that's pretty straightforward. I hadn't fully decided on where I want the gauges at and all that. And then for accessory switches, I went with little toggle switches. If you remember the last boat, the fan boat, I had that big lit up switch panel. I think it was like a 6-gang rocker switch, whatever. It worked great. It never let me down. For 30 bucks, everything was pre-wired. It was pretty easy. But the only problem I found with it was if a switch ever went out, there was no way to replace it, or at least on the one I bought. There was no way of replacing it, and I'd have to buy a whole new panel. So I went with these. That way, if these ever go bad, I can pop one out, plug the wires back in, and I'm back up and going. I don't have to order a whole new switch panel and all that. So that is all my pieces and parts. Oh, and my GPS, which the only thing I don't like about this console is it wasn't quite long enough to flush mount my GPS. I wanted it flush mounted up here and then have my gauges below it, but after playing around with it, I kind of want it out up top and then angled towards me a little bit. That way, if I'm ever running during the day, the reflection from the sun doesn't wash out my GPS where I can't see it. So yeah, that is the plan. I'm gonna start laying this out, and then I'm gonna take it over there and drill it. Just using 2 different size hole saws. One of them's a 3-inch, one of them's a 2-inch for the smaller gauges. So it's gonna be pretty straightforward. I'm pretty excited to get this part done because this is kind of the whole the brains of the airboat, I guess you could say. And the old instrument panel I had was garbage. So I'm very excited about this. So I've got everything on the panel laid out how I wanted it. I had to play around a little bit to get everything to fit right. Of all things, the switches gave me the most trouble. So I've got everything laid out. It looks a little goofy because I kind of had to move lines, screw lines out just to figure it out because I didn't play anything in advance. Anyway, I've got a, what is this, 3 3/8, 3.5, something like that, hole saw chucked up in a drill press. I've got the instrument panel clamped down the best I can get it, because this is the important part is as soon as the saw touches, you don't want your panel walking anywhere, because then you've over drilled your hole for the gauge, and then you're just kind of out of luck then, because now you've got a 3.5 inch hole there that a gauge doesn't fit in. Now you've got to figure out what to do with it. So this is where I'm at. I'm gonna go super slow with it, take my time, and keep everything from walking out on me, because I really don't want to screw this up. So this is where we're at. I'm gonna drill it. I'm gonna drill the other 4. I think they're 2 inch gauges, 2 inches, and then drill my switch holes, and then figure out the top part of this. Now I'm using real light pressure just to let the saw establish itself, and then I'll go a little bit harder, because I want it to drill a nice square hole. The end of day 4. As you can see, it's dark outside. I gotta go home. I'm just sick of working on it today. So I got the console pretty much buttoned up. I had to make a few little changes to it to make it work like I wanted to. I'm still gonna put cup holders here and a little cubbyhole hatch for like wallets and phones and stuff, but that's where we're at. I'm fixing to pull this boat out of here and go home and eat some dinner, some well overdue dinner. But I do appreciate you guys sticking around. If you made it this long, hopefully this video will be a little bit shorter. Yeah, if you haven't already, subscribe to follow along with this build and hopefully some fishing trips in the near future.